Eamon Tuhami from Digital Apps. You are a consulting firm in digital media. You have consulted for the likes of AOL, EMAP, Virgin Media. What's your take on the data opportunity that everyone's talking about with regards to online video ads?
Again, I kind of mentioned this before. We all talk about data. I think it's about audience. We mentioned how Videology have a great approach in terms of relying on lots of different data sources. One of those data sources might be someone like Visual DNA, who's one of our clients. So they're including both demographic and emotive type data to better serve an ad. So in terms of data, it's again around have I got the right data points to identify that right person at the right time to create the right action. I suppose the challenge around data is sometimes it can be confusing. So when you're looking at a typical agency planner buyer who they seem to be getting younger all the time, we as a consultancy do lots of training with them because they simply don't understand data. So you hear Experian's got this data, Axiom's got this data, Blue Kite, Excelate, Weberama, DataZoo, etc., etc. And it's hard to understand what data points to use. I think it's compounded when you look at it from a programmatic sense or when you look at DSPs. So I can go into something like Media Math and the number of selections I have from a data point is overwhelming. I would love for someone to count how many data selections there are, but I know from some suppliers individually there's over thousands of selections. So as a planner, how do I know what the right selection is to use at the right time? Obviously someone like Videology have optimization algorithms that help, but how do you choose the right data to begin with before something's even been optimized?
Yeah, so much of the talk about data regards how you process and use it to make meaning from it. But when you talk to clients, do they, at the outset, do they have the data that they need in order to make those decisions?
Well, I think it depends about what client we're talking to. So as a consultancy, we work across advertisers, publishers, agencies, and third-party data providers. So if we start with the latter, if we start with third-party data providers, they have the data. Now, their challenge is, how do I communicate to an agency this is the best data to use? This is what this data means. This is why this data is high-quality data. This is why this data is going to make a difference with your advertisers. At the complete opposite end, when you're talking to the advertisers have great first-party data. So how can they use that data to onboard? We're seeing companies like Visual DNA or Experian, or companies that come over from the US, people like LiveRamp, who are offering data onboarding capabilities. I suppose the opportunity that creates is not only advertisers using their own data, but using data to join up their campaigns. So for example, if I'm Mercedes and I'm about to do a direct mail to my ideal purchasers, I can take that direct mail list and then translate it to targeting just those people online. And the question is then, what medium, what advert, what format do I start off with? I think definitely pre-roll video is going to be at the top end of that in terms of helping create that awareness to further drive action further on down the funnel.
I was thinking about the evolution of the online advertising chain recently, and it seems that we now have like aggregators of aggregators of aggregators. So I guess on the one hand, at least, there's more data going around. There's an approach for holistic volume of data. But is that a good thing as far as, let's say, ad planners are concerned, or as we kind of have this Russian doll approach of aggregators within aggregators, does that kind of distance buyers from the data itself?
Well, I think it depends about how much support they're getting. So simply to say to an ad buyer, you now have this opportunity, do you want to use it or not, is going to confuse them. I think you need to make sure that they are trained up. As a consultancy, we've developed 3 core training modules that we can take out to either agencies or advertisers to get them to understand what the capabilities are. I think as an industry, we love to we love complexity. We love to make something sound sometimes I think more complicated than it is. We love TLAs, for example, 3-letter acronyms. I think consistency is the key. We heard it from Andrew in terms of their new rating products, in terms of being able to consistently measure people. So I think, to answer your question, more data is a good thing if it's used in the right way and people actually understand what they're doing.
And we heard this morning from Tom Bowman at BBC Worldwide, I guess kind of a call to arms for the retention of human input in the ad buying chain. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so you said, you talked about humans versus robots. And I think it's about, how can humans and robots, live harmoniously, or if you want to use that analogy. I think it's about using the right tools at the right time. I think, programmatic buying, allows for a huge amount of efficiencies. But also I think there's dangers in the fact that you can then say to someone, well, look, you can bid on anything in real time. How do they know they're bidding on the right thing at the right time if they don't have that support?
So I guess programmatic is about automation partly. We've seen on a global geopolitical economic scale, automated markets can fail. Should that be a weak point? Should we think of that, of programmatic as a weak point?
Not at all. I think for me it depends about where you are in the funnel. So I always go back to my marketing degree in first lesson when they're talking about AIDA. So the whole awareness, interest, desire, action funnel. I think a programmatic methodology works really well when you're further on down the funnel. The reason for that is because you know a lot more about that person. Optimization, self-learning algorithms, can really come into its own. But the question is, how do you start off targeting that right person? One of the things that we're starting to do with media agencies is actually talk to the creative agency. So the creative agency who created that campaign and the advert to begin with, what was the thinking behind that? What was the pen portrait of the audience that they were trying to target? What do they look like? And some of the interesting things we see is lots of times they provide a very rich picture of what that audience looks like. Everything from how they socialise, where they shop, what their favourite colour is. Somewhere though, sometimes on that kind of description of an audience, they'll have, and this person is 25 to 45 and they're a ABC1 male. What tends to happen, we've seen in some examples, is lots of people will then just go and target that very niche bit of data in that very rich pen portrait. So I think it's about moving beyond just demographic in terms of how you describe someone.
So let's open it out, and feel free to come back on anything Eamon just said, but maybe I can kick off. I mean, broad brushstroke, a lot of data suggests that conventional linear TV consumption is going up, and advertisers like that seems still to be very efficient means of communicating with audiences. Therefore, what problem is online video ad trying to solve if that is still an efficient means of advertising?
Well, I think it's absolutely true. It's an undeniable truth that TV continues to be in very rude health. And there's always a conversation, I guess, around is a medium effective, is it economic, and is it efficient? And I think somewhere in those three questions, there's a very positive and strong role for online and the digital delivery over the top of television. There will be some audiences that TV will continue to deliver in huge volume and very efficiently, and there will be other audiences that it will need actually support from other media. And I guess that it's just about making sure that we have a consistent way of understanding the data relationships between those two. And it is difficult because, I mean, someone once said to me, you can have your data cheap, fast, or good. Pick two. And it's still largely true.
I'd follow on from that by saying that coming back to some of the points that Eamon was talking about the data and the programmatic data working at the bottom of the funnel and that performance angle. If you look at the data that people have available, it's about building on what they're used to buying, which is very much what TV has done, and that will be the age and the genders. Then when you look into the other parts of the funnel and the other data that is available, it's how they can bring that to the table and be able to maximise the use of that. So the point around they've got this rich aspect of descriptions available, is let's start to diversify the types of data that we can buy on. So I know Visual DNA have got emotive data now, just to link up what Amy was saying before, and that is very much, you're used to seeing these big market research descriptions, and that will help with the emotive data and be able to target on that at different parts of the funnel.